Now, next thing is, how will you apply CSS in React? Here you have import app.css. You know what this is? This actually is importing the CSS directly, which was generated by the React application itself. Let me just click on this app.css to see it has some CSS here. We can add our own class also, but let's try a simple button class here. For example, I will simply add, let's say, or even I can directly say button, right? Because this is the core CSS class which I can use, right? But let's say I want to define a custom class for this, right? Because I do not want that we apply the same design for both the buttons, because I want to try two different ways. That is two different ways to apply CSS. So first way is that you have the CSS file. So let's do that. I'll create a class called custom buttons. I'll say CB. Now let's say I want that the width of the button is, for example, 100 pixels, right? Height also I want to keep 100 pixels. Color, I just want that, let's say it has this kind of color, and let's keep some font size also on it. I'll say maybe 25 pixels, something like this. Now this class which we have added in this app CSS, actually if you have created a new CSS, certainly you're going to import it. And then here on this button, I can say class name is equal to, what's the class name? It is the custom button. I'll just save this and we'll check this. You see, let's change some more formatting. We change the height at least. We keep it at least 150 pixels and see now this looks better, right? So now you have this button with a different design. So this is one way of applying CSS. Now let's try the second way as well. I'll copy the same CSS and I'll go back to this button. The second way is the inline CSS. How do you do that? You use the style tag here. You can do that. Let me bring this on, click on new line, so it gives you better idea. Now here in the style, what you have to do, you have to pass an object literal. So you write like this. And all the CSS which you have, let's say height, then you put a colon sign, and then you have some value, let's say 10 pixels and so on. And then you have a semicolon. So instead of that, you'll have a comma, because this is an object literal which you are passing. Either you write the object literal here, but because here in this case, we have more settings, what we can do, let's say I create const btn style named object, and this is an object literal, right? And I'm going to put all these settings in it. The only thing is this is an object literal. It's a JavaScript object. So that means I'm going to put a comma here. End of statement, I'm going to say comma. At the end, I don't need it. And these are the values which I'm going to cover into either single quotes or double quotes, doesn't matter. So I'm going to keep this as string and I'm going to save this. Now, because we are in the JavaScript file, this dash, that is the snake case, is not allowed. Instead of this in React, what will you do? You will have the camel case. So you have the S capital and the dash is removed. That's what you have to do. This is one thing. And now this btn style I'm going to apply inside this style tag, right? So this actually is applied the inline styling. So now you see both the buttons are formatted, but they are formatted with different way of CSS. This is using the external CSS, that is the .css file. And this is using the inline styling. For inline styling, even there are other libraries available, because when you create an object literal, there are few limitations. As we go on, you will realize what are limitations we have. But at the moment, at least you can understand how we can implement the styling, the external one and the internal, that is the inline styling. This is how we do it. Make sure either you write the object literal here, but when you have a bigger object literals, you create the object literal separately, assign the values, and you pass that here. The only thing is you have to take care that the snake case values will be converted into camel case. You already know what is snake case and camel case, right? This is snake case, snake dash case values. This is how we write snake case, which is the CSS syntax, whereas this is camel case. The same thing if I write in camel case, I'll say snake case value. This is camel case, right? So always make sure, even in JavaScript, this happens, that the CSS snake case is converted into camel case. That's how naming conventions are followed. So the question here is, how do you apply CSS with React? Well, there are many ways. Libraries are also available. You use third-party libraries. We will also see some bootstrap getting applied in a project work. But at the moment, we are discussing about the two basic ways. The first way is we use the external styling, and the second is inline styling. So here, for example, that's what we tried. We have the external styling, that is CB, the command button. We did write the CSS here in the .css file, that is the app.css, and then later we import it, and then we just have to write the class name like this, and the CSS is applied. This is a very common way, the external way. As long as the inline styling is concerned, this is the example where we tried the object literal first of all with the element, but when you have more values, it is not very ideal way to write all the settings here inside this area. So as you can see that we shifted all the settings to an object literal, and then we passed the object literal like this. So this is how you do apply the basic CSS.